It's so nice to see all of you here. Good afternoon. I'm Petra Sultan, the Director of Advocacy and Education for Thrive, the Alliance of Nonprofits for San Mateo County. Welcome to Thrive's Candidate Forum for the newly formed State Assembly District 21, which covers South San Francisco, San Bruno, Millbrae, Burlingame, Hillsborough, Baywood Park, Highlands, Belmont, San Carlos, Foster City, Redwood City, Emerald Lake Hills, North Fair Oaks, Menlo Park, and East Palo Alto. I'd like to do a land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that our work takes place on the ancestral and unceded land of the Ramaytush Ohlone. Before we start, just a few reminders about voting. Voting starts on May 9th. You can go to any vote center in the county to vote in person, register, re-register, get language or accessibility assistance, or drop off your ballot. You can also put your ballot in any drop box or any mailbox. Postage is paid. And don't worry about going to a vote center to get your cool I voted sticker. Those will come with your ballot in the mail to every registered voter. The last day to vote is June 7th. We encourage you to vote earlier if you would like. You can go to smcvote.org for more details. So about Thrive. Thrive is a trusted network of over 200 nonprofit organizations, government entities, foundations, businesses, and community leaders with a shared commitment to strengthening the nonprofit sector, thereby improving the quality of life in San Mateo County. Thrive unites the voice and influence of nonprofits, helps build their capacity, and enables effective cross-sector collaboration. We're co-hosting this event with several of our partners: San Francisco Peninsula People Power, the Center for Independence of Individuals with Disabilities, Belle Haven Action, Youth. I have the wrong script. Sorry. Peninsula Family Service, Rise South San Francisco, and Youth Leadership Institute. Please excuse me, we have been doing a lot of candidate forums, and I hope that you, in addition to coming to this one, are interested in coming to some of our other candidate forums. The last one is tomorrow night with Choose Children, and it is going to be focused on children's issues for Board of Supervisors, District 2 and 3, but it's really of interest to anybody in the county. And you can find all of our recordings to our candidate forums on Thrive's website. Thrive is nonpartisan and non-endorsing organization. The purpose of this forum is to give all of the candidates that are running to represent District 15 the opportunity to introduce themselves to voters and present their positions on the most pressing issues for nonprofits and their communities. Thrive values voter engagement and voter turnout. And this is one of many ways that Thrive encourages greater civic participation. You can always look on our YouTube channel or on our website for more information. The format for this afternoon's forum is the following. Each candidate will start with a 1.5 minute introduction. The order of these introductions has been randomized. Subsequent questions will be asked in rotation, allowing each candidate to speak first. Each of our co-hosting organizations will introduce themselves and then ask a question of the candidates, and the candidates will then have 60 seconds to answer. Halfway through, we'll do a series of short answer questions, and you'll have 20 seconds to respond. At the conclusion of the questions, you'll have another 1.5 minutes for a closing statement. I'd like to recommend, as there are a lot of candidates, that the best way to view this is on speaker view, not on gallery view. So if you go up to the top corner of your Zoom, put it on speaker view, that'll make it easier for everyone to track. For this webinar, the chat function has been disabled and we're not taking questions from the audience. The Q&A function is available if you have technical issues, but please refrain from using it to comment on the candidates or their positions or to make any endorsements. This is in keeping with the nonpartisan nature of this event. At this time, I want to welcome the candidates in alphabetical order: James Coleman, Mark Gilman, Maurice Goodman, Giselle Hale, Alison Madden, Diane Papp, and Tania Solé. The candidates will now proceed with their 1.5 minute opening statement, beginning with James. And by the way, for everyone, there will be a countdown clock on the screen, so you'll be able to know how much time you have left. So James.
Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Hello, everyone. It's so great to be here, and thank you so much to the Thrive Alliance for hosting this forum. For those of you who don't know me, I'm James Coleman, and I currently serve on the South San Francisco City Council. I was born and raised in a working class family here in South City. My father was a FedEx worker, and my mother is a Taiwanese immigrant who works as a lab assistant at Kaiser. When I was 5, my father suffered a traumatic injury that left him largely paralyzed from the waist down, and my mother had to work 2 jobs in order to make ends meet. At a young age, I experienced what it was like to fall through the cracks. And growing up, I wanted to make sure that our government and our medical system worked for all of us and not just the wealthy few. In 2020, I saw how COVID wreaked havoc on our working class families in housing, healthcare, childcare, and our education systems. I saw how the public health crisis of systemic racism was not just a distant injustice, but a real clear and present issue in our home community. And I successfully ran for city council to bring about that change, justice, and accountability that we want to see in our community, becoming the city's youngest ever and first only LGBTQ council member in the city's history. And so I'm running for state assembly with a very clear purpose. Sacramento can't just work for the wealthy and well-connected, it has to work for all of us. That means a wealth tax on the biggest billionaires so they pay their fair share, building truly affordable housing to address our housing crisis, aggressive action on climate change and holding PG accountable, guaranteeing high-quality healthcare as a human right, and most exciting of all, universal preschool and childcare, which I'm already championing here in South City. Voters in San Mateo County have a real choice to make, and I look forward to talking to you all about these issues today. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me. My name is Mark Gilham, and I'm running for, I grew up in San Francisco, born in San Francisco, lived on the Peninsula, done a lot of degrees from San Jose State, law enforcement, post-certified, traveled all around the world, did a lot of missionary work, and you know, I've been looking around and I'm seeing how we are being really crushed by our government. My reason I am running for this is literally to take down this government. It's coming down. I'm really disgusted with the legislation coming out of Sacramento. I'm talking like SB 145, SB 145 deals with people over the age of 18 having sex with 10, 11, 12-year-olds with their consent. That's really sad. That's disgusting. AB 2223 dealing with the ability for a mother to decide to terminate their, a mother to be able to decide to terminate their baby 28 days after birth. That is just shocking. I don't know what's going on, but parents are going to get control of their children, and we are not going to allow anyone to override the value of how the parent are going to control their children.
Thank you. Your time is up. Maurice.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maurice Goodman. I am a youth developer. I've taught. I currently lead a nonprofit in San Francisco. I have served 2 terms on the South San Francisco School Board prior to being elected to the San Mateo County Community College District Board, where I championed food insecurity, housing, and addressing other basic needs concerns of our students. One of the things that I've done in San Francisco and throughout San Mateo County is not just lead by example, but making sure that my work in the nonprofit field continued and is championed by those young people that I work with. I've committed myself. I've served over 20 years with the Red Cross. I've also served as an employee and a youth developer and director of the Boys and Girls Club in San Francisco before becoming a board member for both the Red Cross currently and the board of the North San Mateo County Boys and Girls Club. A nonprofit that I started in San Francisco called Be Magic was started just similar to the goal of Thrive. Back in 2002, I worked with then Public Defender Jeff Adachi to create Be Magic to create more collaboration and working better of our nonprofits and creating more unity within the nonprofit field. Thank you.
Thank you, Maurice. Giselle?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Giselle Hale. I'm a mom, first and foremost, 5 and 8-year-old girls. I'm an advocate, businesswoman, and the mayor of Redwood City. Before all of that, I was raised by a single mom, a family that went from being middle class to below the poverty line with lots of struggles with food and housing insecurity. Meanwhile, my husband was a foster child. He was taken from his parents at age 6, went through the system, and was passed through his extended family, never had the opportunity to go to college. But despite humble beginnings, because of a good education, because of a social safety net that caught us, we were both able to rise to the top ranks in our fields. And so I serve to ensure that others, and especially children, have the same opportunity that we had to succeed. I started a nonprofit at age 22 and hired our first executive director, so I'm not new to nonprofit work. I began service locally as a board member for a local education foundation where I focused on bond and parcel tax measures and fundraising to support our overall efforts. And I later joined the Planning Commission in 2014, and in 2018 was asked to run for the City Council, where I came in first of 7 candidates. Now as mayor of Redwood City, I have a strong track record for getting things done through collaboration. A couple examples on childcare during COVID. I raised a $5 million COVID childcare relief fund, working together with Heather and Dana from the Community Equity Collaborative, Christine Padilla from Build Up, and Councilwoman Amrance Lee of San Mateo. This fund kept 340 childcare providers in our.
Sorry, we're going to be muting as soon as your time is up. Alison, you're next.
Thank you. My name is Alison Madden. I live in Redwood City. Before that, I lived in Woodside. I'm the single working mom of 2 boys. I raised a millennial and a Gen Z. I wanted to address, for this seat, I want to highlight that for the Peninsula, Silicon Valley, from San Francisco all the way to San Jose, we do not have a single elected female as an assembly member or a senator. I don't urge or vote identity, but it's very important that we have diverse representation, that we have inclusion and proportionality. And I was raised by, my father was helicopter rescue in Vietnam. He was United States Air Force. He was a conservative Republican and my mom was a liberal Democrat. They really never fought about politics. I was raised to be able to speak to people of all opinions and be able to come to a common solution. I happen to be running as a progressive candidate. I am very interested in housing and climate action. I am an integral member of a weekly climate action group that has a current SB 1230 in the Senate, and it's for equity incentives for green transportation. I've been representing tenants and as a housing advocate in Redwood City, fighting.
Thank you, Alison. Diane, you're next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Diane Papp, and I'm the Deputy Mayor in San Mateo, and I'm honored to be with you today. I'm of and from this district. It's filled with family, friends, neighbors, and I know the struggles that exist here. I've led with compassion on our most pressing issues because of where I come from. I'm the granddaughter of Greek immigrants. I grew up with a lot of illness in my family. My brother died at the age of 21, and my mother suffered from lupus and cancer. I bring these hardships up not because I'm the only one that's ever had them, but because they had a profound influence on my life's work. I learned early that life is fragile, you only get one shot, and you can make a difference. It's why I've spent 22 years running a nonprofit, doing boots on the ground work, helping families, and I've run a scholarship program. I run a law practice where I help a lot of small mom and pop businesses. I worked in our communities and I worked in our schools. I'm a mom. I'm married to the son of an El Salvadoran immigrant, and my husband and I together are raising our teenage daughter. I ran for city council in 2015. I've been hard at work on things like infrastructure and affordable housing. I've served on several county boards, and I'm the only candidate to have created 2 county boards. I was reelected in 2020 by the largest margin in the county, and many asked me to run for higher office, which is what brings me here today. Look, I'm running because I know I can make a difference. Often what is more important than what somebody says they're going to do is how they get things done. And I've been an effective leader in this county because I listen and I find out where we can move the needle based on inclusivity and consensus building. Our campaign is about results, not platitudes. There's work to be done, and I'll bring my authentic leadership to Sacramento to champion some of our most pressing issues.
Thank you, Diane. Tania?
Hello and buenos días. Yo soy Tania Solé. When asked why I chose to run in this election cycle, I always come back to three equally important reasons to me. First, some of my earliest formative memories center around spending time in Guatemala with my paternal grandmother and being confronted by pollution in waterways that just a couple of decades earlier had been swimmable waters when my father was a boy. The future of our planet depends on our collective commitment to reversing the effects of climate change through smart environmental policy. There is no magic fix or secret solution. Locally, and focusing on issues directly affecting District 21, my home for over 30 years, 13 years in the Parkside neighborhood in San Mateo, and 12 years at Docktown in Redwood City. Our housing crisis and universal health care need solutions now. I want my grandchildren to be able to afford to stay in the place where they were born. When my maternal grandparents came to the US as German Jewish refugees, it was in part the American dream that drew them to this country. And what I have experienced in my time in the Bay Area is that the true American dream is not accessible to a lot of Americans, but every day is becoming less so. I ask all of you for your support. Si se puede. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all of your introductions. And now we're going to go to our questions. And each question will be asked by a representative from a nonprofit, and they'll tell you a little bit about it. I've put the order in the chat, so hopefully you can just go from one to the other, and we'll have the timer going again. So with that, I'd like to introduce Chantel Watkins from Belhaven Action.
Hi, my name is Chantel Watkins from Belhaven Action in Menlo Park. I'm a student at King Ada College. I'm a double majoring art design and fashion design, custom dressmaking. At Belhaven Action, we work together in Belhaven neighborhood to get the job done. During COVID, we ran a PCR testing site, worked at neighborhood vaccine clinics, and did a lot of outreach to spread the word. Here's our question. In the Belhaven community of Menlo Park, we have issues with economic development and displacement, and we do not qualify for any statewide programs because we are part of a wealthy city. We have financial resources and we choose not to spend it where it is needed the most. Redlining, predatory lending, discriminatory lending create areas in our district where people live without access. Easy access to dependable transportation, medical services, affordable groceries, pharmacy, reasonable housing options, banking, and jobs that pay a living wage. Income inequality, discriminatory practices still exist at the state, county, and local levels. What can you do to address the barriers for working families here? Thank you.
Are you ready for me to answer?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, right. Well, thank you so much. As a nonprofit director who works a lot with in partnership with organizations like yours, I understand what you bring to the community, and you really are imperative to connecting your community to services. And I do the same thing in North County. So I thank you for the work that you've done. And one of the things that I've really spent a lot of time on is equity in transportation. You know, the express lanes are going in on 101, and we wanted to make sure that they weren't just for the wealthy. So we're the first county in the entire state to have an equity program where we will subsidize transponders and clipper cards. And those will go to families that are in need. They're going to be distributed by Samaritan House. It's the first of its kind equity program from express lanes. I'm enormously proud of that. And what I think I will do is I will go to the state to do just that kind of work where we mix resources at the state and make sure that they get channeled to communities like Belhaven without a lot of red tape. That's what I can bring to your community. So thank you for the question. It's awesome.
I guess I'll start. So, it's going to be a priority to ensure that we are protecting all of our tenants from unjust evictions and outrageous rent hikes. That means repealing the Ellis Act and Costa-Hawkins to protect all of our renters, and also ensuring that when we are building our housing, that we are maximizing on the affordability of the housing that's being built. That means investing in mixed income social housing throughout San Mateo County and California. I believe in a wealth tax on billionaires and corporations, so that they are paying their fair share, fully funding the resources and the programs that all of our working families depend on, so that our working families can pay less. And of course, we need to have geographic equity for our communities in San Mateo County, especially when it comes to state funding, so that communities like Belhaven, Millbrae, and others do not fall through the cracks and they get the tax dollars that they deserve. And lastly, widening highways, especially those that are nearby communities of color and run through communities of color, that is not equity. That produces much more pollution, air pollution towards our communities of color. And I'm proud that South San Francisco is the only one looking into opposing the
Thank you, Maurice.
Yes, thank you for your question, Chantel, and for the work that you've done with the Belhaven Action. I've committed my adult life to the work of dismantling and deconstructing systems of oppression in housing, education, the criminal justice system, and yes, in the healthcare system. I will continue to do so if elected. I will continue to speak truth to power. I will continue to empower those within the community to hold those accountable, to act, to hold them accountable, just as I've done. And I have a verifiable track record of doing just that. For those in the community that know me, I will hold those accountable, and I will be that courageous voice in the room when you're not. Thank you.
Hi, Chantel. Giselle Hale here from Redwood City. I think if there's anything we learned from COVID, it is how important community-based organizations are for delivering services. That was one of the biggest takeaways, and not only services, but also messages and communication back and forth. So the biggest thing I'm in favor of moving forward is to continue to use those organizations as the messengers, as the distributors of resources and funding. You are the arteries, you are the veins to the community. Zip code-based programs are problematic. For example, East Palo Alto and Palo Alto share a zip code. And I think we can agree there's a bit of disparity between those communities. And so what we need to do is what we did when we created the COVID Child Care Relief Fund, which really led the way on equitable fund distribution by looking at a basket of factors. Who is going to be served? Was this full-time care or part-time care? That made a difference in terms of the types of families that were getting access to the funding. We didn't just look at zip code. We also looked at what groups were being represented. So I know that there are ways we can do this. We can still use data, but we can make sure that the funds are to the right people.
Tania? You're on mute.
Okay, am I unmuted now? Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. While I appreciate your work and those of other organizations here, as a country, we need to put systems in place that don't require organizations such as yours to exist. So personally, what I want to do is focus in particular on healthcare and housing to put in systems that don't require that individuals such as yourself dedicate yourself to trying to help people in these communities that are not equitably treated. I think that if we systematically overhaul a lot of the systems that we have today, we will vastly improve the outcomes for individuals in communities such as yours without needing you to devote your time to doing that. So that is what I am trying to propose. Thank you for your service.
Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Hi, Chantel. I really appreciate what you're doing at Belle Hosby. Look, you know, when I worked for a 501c3 when I helped Brad and Gigi Allen start Victory National Church, working with local-based communities, getting the government involved, it always messes things up. The regulatory statutes they seem to have to create. The best way we can help you is to work within the local communities through other businesses contributing with, working with you, especially with this inequality you keep bringing up. And at what point does inequality hurt us when the cities can come in and artificially change the minimum wage on what the marketplace can have? So if we change the, hang on. Ooh.
Mark, your time is up. So Alison?
Thank you. Hello, Chantel. Thanks for your question. I think it's really important and urgent, and it's multifaceted. You mentioned housing and you mentioned transportation and equity in both of those things. I disagree that getting the government involved is not a good thing. And I agree that systemic solutions need to be put in place, but we have urgent challenges right now. I would strengthen the Relocation Act, the California Relocation Assistance Law for displacement. Also, I advocated at Docktown and we won at trial. And Redwood City right now is still evicting people without doing a relocation plan. I would strengthen the Relocation Act to make sure displaced people are provided compensation to get into new housing. I also think a public bank is part of the solution, getting people loans that are not predatory and at risk. The group I'm involved with gives incentives for transportation. The California Constitution, Article 34, was passed in the 1950s. It needs to be repealed. Even the realtors want to repeal it. It's inhibiting public incentives and impetus for the government.
Thank you, Alison. Thank you, Chantel, for your question. We're now going to move to our second question with Heather Cleary, the CEO of Peninsula Family Service.
Thanks, Petra. At Peninsula Family Service, we offer tools and support to our vulnerable neighbors. Part of this work is the operation of 8 state-subsidized early learning centers in San Mateo County, educating and caring for children so their parents can work. The governor has been very supportive of preschool and TK in the school districts. My question is on our babies, our infants, and our toddlers. How are you planning to address the lack of access and workforce for quality childcare for children ages 0 to 3?
Thank you for the question, Heather. Definitely an area near and dear to my heart as somebody who's still a consumer of childcare and most recently of infant childcare, which is definitely the most expensive. You know, a couple things. We know that right now, childcare now exceeds the cost of rent for a working family. It's about 28%. It's probably gone up. And we also know that, it depends on the source, but $1 invested in early childhood education yields $13 to $17 in savings down the way. And that's in terms of chronic disease, criminal justice system, and addiction. So I believe the investments that we should be making are exactly there in early childhood education. Now, I don't agree with everything the governor is proposing. I know that these independent centers are actually very important because school-based programs bleed more into education, and what these children need at this age is nurturing. So I'm very much in favor of continuing to operate independent centers for infants and toddlers that provide them with age-appropriate programming.
Yes,
Hello,
childcare. Yes,
All right,
childcare
it's
is
Tania
very
next.
important. Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Hello.
Tania.
So if I'm in a good mood today or this afternoon, it's because I had the pleasure of taking care of my granddaughters this morning. Normally Mondays and Wednesdays, precisely because of this problem, I help my daughter as she also works full time. So I am fully cognizant of the problem. She not only tried to solve the problem by trying to work for a child care center while taking her first daughter with her to work, but then realized that she couldn't afford to support her whole family by trying to do that. So I think one of the things that we absolutely need to do is support the funding of higher salaries for people who do these jobs. It is just not realistic for us to prioritize this in a very broad manner and yet not support it with salaries that would actually make it the type of job that I do for love. I do it because I want my daughters to have the very best that they can. And I think we all should do that.
Great. sorry for going a bit out of order, but childcare is something that's very important to me. My father was in and out of the hospital during much of my childhood, and my mother was working 2 jobs. Oftentimes, when we couldn't find childcare, and because we couldn't afford childcare, I was in the break room of Kaiser Permanente where my mother worked. And of course, childcare is one of the most the best investments that a community can make. Every dollar you invest in childcare comes back as $8.50 at the low end and $17 at the high end. And what we really need to do is provide and really invest in universal childcare and preschool for every single family. And let me tell you, we're not just talking about it here in South San Francisco. I'm actually working on investing in childcare. We have brought together a coalition of unions, teachers, parents, and advocates to write a ballot measure that's going to be voted on this November. What it's going to do is tax the big corporations in our city, big tech and big biotech, bring that money back in the form of universal preschool and childcare. But not only that, it'll also raise the wages of our teacher wages to a living wage. And that's something that can be taken from South San Francisco and brought to every single family and teacher all throughout California.
Thank you, James. Maurice?
Yes, I myself was a child care worker. I was a director of a child development center. I supported the Big Lift and was responsible for bringing it to South San Francisco as a board member, as well as seeing the importance of transitional kindergarten and our K through 12 system and making it a TK through 12 system. With regards to access, I do believe preschool for all can be important, but the first go round with this, running a child development center, I saw how preschool for all ran a couple of independent child development centers or home daycares out. And so I was a product of that. And so one of the things that's important to me is making sure that we have some security for those small businesses, as well as the pipeline for creating quality childcare workers, which we've done at Skyline College with our lab school, as well as providing quality providers, as well as time.
Alison, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I strongly support this as well. I think we need to, I'm very encouraged by the governor's plan and the amount of funding that he's allocating to this. We have a very large surplus right now of tax dollars because in California, we have been doing well. And we need to route this to early childcare and safe. I was fortunate in that I was able to take some time when my children were 0 to 3. I was working and placing them in situations that were not as stable as I would like. They were local to me, but I would like everyone to have the opportunity to know that very local to them is a safe childcare option that has incentives where the workers are paid and
Thank you. We realize 1 minute is very short, but we have many candidates, so sorry about we having to cut everyone off. Mark, you're up next.
All right, thank you. Heather, yeah, childcare is interesting. We have a lot of issues with this, but I was sitting here thinking on this, and if we just go ahead and keep taxes where they're currently located, right where we're at, and we cut our government 20%, we're gonna have enough money to help subsidize healthcare for children. And it also helps groups like Belle Palsy and also helps the education system. So yeah, that's a way that we can fix that, to actually help our parents, our mothers and fathers who have children. And I want to appreciate all the work you're doing. Thank you.
Go ahead, Diane.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Heather. Nice to see you. And if no one's been to where Peninsula Family Service has a preschool here in San Mateo, I suggest you go. It is a magnificent facility. So look, I don't think there's any disagreement among this panel that early learning is a game changer. No question. What we need, more money and better training opportunities. I applaud the legislation that's providing $5.5 billion for early learning and childcare providers. Reimbursement rates were increased then from $17 to $23 an hour. We got a ways to go, and we need benefits and sick leave for such workers. But I also want us to invest in training. Maurice, I would give you some back some of my time so I could hear more about what Skyline's doing. I really appreciate the work. It's local, it's important. I'm hopeful that we can get into perhaps a grant program that pays for some of that, because we don't want people to be graduating with debt when they're doing this kind of important work. So it's money and it's training. That's what we got to have come from Sacramento.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Heather, for asking your question and for the tremendous work you do in our community. With that, our next question is going to be from Andrea Gill from Youth Leadership Institute.
Hello all, my name is Andrea Gill. I'm a program coordinator with Youth Leadership Institute. We are a nonprofit that brings young people and adult allies to come together to create positive community change that not only promotes social justice, but racial equity as well. From we see within our civic empowerment programs, young people often share that their voices and issues are not being heard at a constituent level. So our question today is, how do you plan to engage young people in your decision-making and legislative process?
Thank you very much. I have attended a number of youth events, especially in the climate space. I truly believe that youth are leading in that space, for that matter. And in fact, if we look at throughout history, youth have led with a number of the most important developments in the United States. So supporting youth is absolutely part of my agenda. As I mentioned, I have two granddaughters. My two children are well, it depends how you define youth. They're young adults. So if you were to add them into the group, they definitely are worthy of your support and your consideration. And so everybody here is actually, I believe, looking towards youth for the future. They are the future. And we have leaders domestically and abroad that are setting the agenda, and which is why I believe that the sustainability agenda that I am running on is so critical, because you are the people who will live with the results of what we do today.
Alison?
So I agree that the youth are leading in the climate space, and I very much support the work of the Sunrise Movement. I went to the climate strike in San Jose this past Earth Day and was really encouraged with all of the young people in their speaking. I would engage all of them, and not just climate, but housing. There's housing insecurity for students, whether they're still in elementary and high school or whether they're in college. I would reach out to and engage the youth really in every area impacting California today, especially judicial reform as well. There's a lot of work that needs to be done with respect to reducing the school to prison and jail pipeline, and that's occurring in California, and we need a lot of reform there. And I would seek their input on every level, on every issue.
Mark?
Yeah, so we're talking about climate initiative. If it hadn't been so politicized, I just have issues with some of these climate issues. They're way too political on this. I don't know how much of it is real science. If by virtue of teaching children this, then I guess we should let them learn that all these people who are pushing the climate agenda are buying multi-million-dollar homes on the beach if the sea is supposed to be rising. No, don't. So, yeah, I have an issue with the climate. I think we need to relook at this. I think most of it is propaganda-driven, and I think it's all about taxes. How to control us and keep us taxed. That's it.
Hi, Andrea. So one of the first things that I did when I was elected was make children and youth a top 3 priority in my city. And what that means is that we now consult youth on any policy area that will impact them. That's what we did recently with our housing element plans. We met with youth both in the high school level and in the community colleges to understand what kind of housing needs they predicted. Second is to get them meaningfully involved. We are doing the first participatory budgeting in the area, which means youth have been able to create programs and projects for $1 million in funding and also vote on them. And finally, is making it possible to participate meaningfully in government. Redwood City is the first city in the area exploring removing a requirement to be an elector, which means someone who can vote, as a requirement to participating in boards and commissions. We want to hear from more voices, and so we're doing what we can to incorporate more individuals and more youth voices into our local government. And that's what I would continue to do.
Yes, for me, I know it was already said that youth are the future, but I believe youth are the now. I believe empowering our youth where they are is important to start. Just as I've done, as far as I can remember, I was a student trustee and at my community college at Skyline, but also when I was elected to the South San Francisco School Board, I was personally responsible for having and creating the student trustee there to make sure that students had a voice, that they continue to see themselves at the table, but to make sure that there are to make sure that they're a part of the change that they want to see, whether we're talking about a clothing policy at a high school or we're talking about police reforms. We have to allow our students to make sure that they have the voice as they continue to build their confidence as well as their competence in order to be leaders in our community.
You ready? I can go.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Well, as a mother of a 16-year-old, I know that there's plenty to listen to. And I think what you really have to do is you have to come to where students are. And that includes regular visits to high schools, regular visits to teen centers, reaching out via social media. You really have to bring yourself to listen. Those voices are there. They're just waiting for a platform within which so that their elected leaders will hear them. And I think it really entails going to students. I do it all the time as a council member, as a deputy mayor. I did it as mayor. I think it's tremendously important, not only to high school, I go to elementary schools as well. And I try to incorporate the thought process of what it takes to participate in our democracy so that we set the expectation that you are welcome and your voice is welcome. And not only that, but we want to hear from you. So I think you have to go to where the youth are, and that's what I would do.
As a young person myself, I can say that young people are not being heard. That's why I ran for city council in the first place. When tons of youth activists and I went to the city council following the murder of George Floyd, advocating for change, we were silenced by the old mayor of South San Francisco. And that's what compelled me to run for city council, to bring about that change and the justice I wanted to see in the community. And it's also why I'm running for state assembly, because it's going to be our generation that bears the brunt of the climate crisis and the affordable housing crisis. And we're already feeling its effects. Median home sale values of over $2 million in San Mateo County. Pollution, drought, sea level rise, wildfires, we're already feeling it. And in South San Francisco, I created an official youth commission, and we need to make sure that we are removing the barriers of youth being involved, especially in elected positions, so that we have a hand in shaping the policies that affect our generation the most. And I'm proud to be endorsed by statewide and local youth organizations, including the Sunrise Movement, Project Super Bloom, the California Democrats, and more.
Thank you, James. We are now going to switch gears. Thank you, Andrea, for your question. We really appreciate it. We're now going to be doing lightning rounds. So this is the way it's going to work. I'm going to ask a question. You guys are going to answer it. In order to keep it moving, if you could just look in the chat so you know which order we're going to go in. You have 20 seconds to answer the question. We will, again, sorry, but we will cut off your mic. Some of these are fun questions and some of them are serious. So hopefully we can all keep up and make this a little bit of a fun thing. So the first question is, would you support a bill similar to AB 50, which would expand the Medi-Cal waiver program to allow more low-income seniors to get financial assistance when living in assisted living facilities. There are over 7,000 seniors at risk of eviction currently on the waiting list.
Quick answer, yes.
Great.
You bet I would. Did you hear me?
Yes, Alison.
I'm sorry. Yes, absolutely. We have so much money that we're spending on, wars and things that we don't need to be spending on. We need to spend on our seniors.
Yes, I would support it, but we need to go beyond just the centers and the facilities. We also need more in-home care providers because we don't have enough facilities.
Yes, I would.
Mark?
Absolutely, absolutely would support this. I think it's a good initiative. We need to help our seniors. We just can't leave them throwing out in the street, but there are also other people we need to help as well, but they're one of them.
Yes, absolutely. I believe fundamentally that housing is a human right, and we need to protect all of our residents from evictions and keep our seniors in their homes.
Okay, next question. What is your favorite spot in this district and why? Starting with Diane.
Sorry. So I'll go Seal Point Park in San Mateo. I do a lot of my workouts there and a lot of my best thinking. I think a lot of things that I have to think about as an elected, I think them through when I'm there. I'm really grateful for the facility. So that would be my #1 pick.
I would say the area east of 101 in Redwood City. I love it by the bay. We are at risk, of course, of sea level rise and climate impact there. I live on a floating home at Docktown, and the marinas where people have been allowed to live for years are my favorite part of Redwood City. I've been an integral part of saving that community.
Courthouse Square in Redwood City, the living room of San Mateo County. It is a place where people come together to celebrate, to mourn, to protest. I was there yesterday for a reproductive rights protest and always love coming back there. It's how we come together, it's where we come together. Very proud that it's in Redwood City.
I'm going to say March Banks up in Daly City, and honorable mention just about any other park up in North County. I'd love to see more of our county come down in North County and get to see how beautiful it is.
Mark?
Yeah, Seaport Boulevard. That's where I love to take my 18.5 foot XL Solution kayak and go kayaking out into the bay. It's a wonderful place, and I like what they did to expanding the fishing out there is really great, and I just like going out there. It's a really good place.
Definitely Sign Hill in South San Francisco. You can climb on the letters that say South San Francisco, the industrial city, and you can also see San Francisco from the peak, and you can also see most of San Mateo County and as well as South San Francisco from there as well. It's also a perfect place for a picnic.
So my first two were taken by earlier commentators, Seal Point and Bear Island. And so in the interest of keeping it a diverse group, I'm going to go with Coyote Point in San Mateo and Curiosity.
Excellent. And now we're going to use our imaginations. If you had a magic wand and you could get one bill to become law today without having to go through any process whatsoever, you could just make it happen, what would that be?
For me, it would be repealing California Constitution, Article 34, although I don't think a legislative bill could do that. So I'll have to default to reestablishing redevelopment. It was one of the things I wasn't able to raise earlier. And we lost redevelopment through the California League of Cities challenging both the replacement initiative.
I'd love to see an immediate infusion of $1 billion or more in funding for affordable housing. Let's go with $1 trillion. Why not? Magic wand and such.
I'd say free healthcare across the state and across the country for that matter.
Mark?
Oh, I would definitely, if I had a magic wand to get rid of something, I would get rid of all property taxes, but right now I would like to see Prop 13 restored back to health. Because of the weakening of Prop 13, my property taxes, which should have gone from $15,000 to $2,000, have now jumped to $13,000 a year, and I am not happy.
I'd say wealth tax on the largest billionaires and corporations so they pay their fair share. And currently, the wealth tax that is in the legislature, AB 2050, would raise over $22 billion in the first year of implementation. And imagine the profound effects that it can fully fund public education, childcare, housing, so much for a lot of our working class communities.
I would say SB 9 and 10, they're essentially handouts to developers, and they're masquerading as affordable housing help, when in fact they're not. I mentioned earlier I moved from San Mateo to Redwood City 12 years ago. 12 years ago, I moved to Redwood City because it was cheaper than San Mateo. Well, we have far out built.
And Diane.
Okay, great. So I'll go using some of the surplus for affordable housing. We already have the money sitting there. It's one-time money, doesn't lend itself to programming, and we got a real need for affordable housing. So that's where I'd head. But my second would be to bring back redevelopment agencies in some fashion.
Excellent. Thank you, Diane. And I wish we all could have magic wands who would make this whole process much faster. So the next question. Would you support the introduction of a bill similar to AB 339, which would require jurisdictions to continue to provide access to public meetings via internet and phone, similar to what we have done during COVID, and where the result was increased access and public participation in local governments? AB 339 was vetoed by the government, but by the governor, but it was also very watered down. But we'd like to hear your opinion about access.
I'm a huge supporter of this. I actually wrote AB 992, which was the Modernization of the Brown Act, which was the first major update to that bill. There's a new Alex Lee bill that I'm incredibly supportive of. I have sent a support letter on behalf of the city of Redwood City, and I believe access and transparency are absolutely paramount to a strong democracy.
I agree. Access and transparency is key. One of the things that I've pushed for with our district from prior to COVID, to making sure that all meetings were recorded and kept on that drives before they were being deleted for no reason whatsoever. So I want to make sure that this continues and we provide quality, transparent access to our meetings.
Mark?
Yeah. Yeah, when COVID came, that was kind of a weird thing when we were all locked down, and getting access to meetings and stuff, it really did open up a lot of doors. I actually kind of was surprised the governor did
Yes, I'm also a big supporter of making sure that our public meetings are accessible as possible. When we saw our public meetings go online, we saw such a rich infusion of communities of color, seniors, young people getting involved in politics for the first time in their lives, and myself included. And I'm a proud supporter of AB 339, its latest iteration. I'm also proud to be endorsed by its author, Assemblymember Alex Lee.
Yes, I also do support it. Participation is key. I've been participating in Redwood City City Council meetings for almost 10 years. I know how difficult it is sometimes to actually show up in person. So I fully agree that access online with recordings and all other options.
I mean, We all know that democracy is not a spectator sport. So we as electeds need to do everything we can to encourage participation. No more on the sidelines. And if there was one blessing that came out of COVID, it was the ability to participate remotely. It's in our power to enhance it now. Let's do it.
I absolutely support this. I'm a very regular speaker at city council meetings in Redwood City for the past 10 years, trying to save the marinas and the floating homes, in addition to advocating for judicial reform and other eviction reform, and trying to get the evictions stopped right now in Redwood City, which are still ongoing. So it's very important to me that the public has the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Okay, next question. What was the last book you read that made an impression or that you enjoyed? Totally fine if it's just a guilty pleasure. No judgment. Just want to get to know you all a little better.
I must say, I have a son that's an actor, and I read a book of short stories that led to his latest work. And it's about vampires. So.
Mark?
Hold on, for some reason. Okay, there we go. The last book I actually enjoyed reading was the Azusa Revivals, about William Seymour, a one-eyed former black slave, but one eye did the greatest exploits of God in LA about 1903 to 1906. It was just amazing what this man did. Oops, we got to hit me.
James?
Yes, On Fire by Naomi Klein, making the case for Green New Deal and why we need it right now more than ever.
I read autobiographies, so I would say Rigoberta Menchu's autobiography.
The Accidental President. It was amazing what Truman got done in, what was it, a matter of 3 or 4 months. Absolutely a spectacular book and a new take on what that presidency did for our country.
I would say Chesapeake by James Michener. It's hundreds and hundreds of pages long, I think almost 1,000, but it was so interesting. And it's a fictional but true to life recounting of America from the first landing of the ships from Europe to the present day. And my family is a big East Coast Irish family, and it was like being home.
Insane Consequences, How Mental Health Industry Fails the Mentally Ill. This book was referred to me by 2 NAMI board members who have mentally ill children, and it is really difficult to read because it is incredibly sad what we put these families through, and that we need to rebuild the mental illness system that Ronald Reagan dismantled to help these families and these individuals.
Thank you. So the next question is about transportation and the Bay Area as a whole. Which is, do you support SB 917, which was sponsored by Josh Becker, our local state senator, which is the Seamless Transit Transformation Action Act, which advances regionally coordinated fares, schedules, and wayfinding signage for the Bay Area's fragmented public transportation system. Mark, you're first.
Yeah, we have a big problem with transportation, don't we? We keep growing and we don't have enough room for it. It makes you wonder about this, this expansion they're doing from San Francisco all the way down to LA. What do they call it? The one high-speed rail core. Everybody's going to be living there and getting on the trains.
Yes, absolutely. I fully support the seamless transit principles. If we want to make sure that our public transit is being ridden, we need to make sure it's as reliable and as frequent as possible. And that means ensuring that all of our over 23 transit agencies in the Bay Area are actively collaborating together, and that it's as easy for transit riders as possible.
Yes, I'm fully in support. I have lived prior to the 30 years in this district, and even during the last 30 years, I have traveled abroad extensively, and I am truly shocked at how behind the United States and even District 21 are. It's just confounding that we don't have a system that handles both trains, buses, and other systems.
I mean, connectivity is key. I fully support the bill. I've written a letter in support of it. I think that if we enhance our transportation, it will make it so much easier, obviously, for all of us to get around. And I think it will enhance housing, quite frankly, if we have better transportation along the housing corridor.
Yes, I absolutely support this. And I messaged Josh to thank him. For the last several years, I've been getting around by e-bike. I pulled all my papers and got all my signatures by e-bike, and I use Caltrain and BART a lot. And sometimes on the weekend, you'll get off at Millbrae and just miss the half-hourly BART by 2 minutes, and you have to wait. And so through coordination, I think that we can make Bay Area transportation seamless and really encourage alternatives to driving.
Almost 2 years ago, when this was first introduced by David Chu, I made sure Redwood City was the very first city to sign on to the Seamless Transportation Petition because of what we've seen in Redwood City with well-placed transit and housing to reduce trips. Greenhouse gas emissions, the largest contributor is transportation. So this is one of the greatest areas to focus.
Thank you. I think Maurice Goodman's having some technical issues, so we will let him answer when he jumps back on. So we'll go to the last of the lightning questions, which is a little bit of a give me. On this question, part one is easy. I can tell you the answer is yes, which I know is kind of cheating, but I will anyway. So nonprofits do a lot of work in this county and really know what's going on locally. Thrive wants to know if you can commit to meeting regularly with Thrive and nonprofits. That's the easy part. How often?
Yes, definitely. And, you know, in my role as a city council member, I've met many times with our local nonprofits, with our local grassroots organizations to ensure that we know what is going on the ground, and that I always have an ear to what the community is feeling. And definitely in the state level, I will make sure that I have regular meetings, especially before legislative sessions, to ensure that we are setting our legislative priorities.
Absolutely. In fact, as you well know, I have attended Thrive meetings for the last 5 to 6 years. So I've been a regular. I continue to attend all the meetings that I can and will continue to do so irrespective of what happens. I am also supportive of other groups that are working in a whole bunch of different areas. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I just want to say, I think Thrive really serves a very unique purpose in bringing together so many different nonprofits. So I appreciate that work, and it allows us really to come to one place to find out about what's going on with different nonprofits. So I think once a quarter would be great.
Thank you. I would absolutely have an open door policy. Obviously, the answer is yes. And I think meeting very regularly, I really appreciate Thrive. I appreciate you hosting this, and I've learned about some nonprofits, including the Youth That Ask Questions that I wasn't aware of. And I would want to meet frequently and have very much an open door policy and meet regularly both in Sacramento and locally.
I can't think of a week that goes by right now where I don't meet with a nonprofit, but more importantly, where one doesn't reach out to me. I very much have an open door policy, and this is just a part of my day-to-day operations and doing business. Thrive, I've mostly interacted with Georgia. We've definitely gotten some interesting things done together, and would just maintain that relationship moving forward in Sacramento.
I agree. I believe funding, board leadership, opportunities for growth and support of our nonprofits are very important, and I would definitely continue to meet as I currently do in my role as a nonprofit leader, but I will definitely continue to do that work to continue to bring your voice to the forefront.
Yeah, I would say meeting quarterly would be fine, not just with you, but working with all the nonprofits that do such a wonderful job in our communities, and making sure that when we meet, we actually meet and have really good discussions and see what we can move forward and help. That would be actually a really good priority for me.
Thank you. We're going to go back, Maurice, if you're ready to do the question that you missed. It's in the chat about seamless, if you support the Seamless Transit Transformation Action Act by Senator Josh Becker.
I thought I answered it. Yes, I do support the seamless transportation as supported by Josh Becker.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if we missed you when your tech went out.
Oh,
So
probably did. Okay, sorry.
That was the lightning round. Now we're going to go back to our questions from, we have two more nonprofits that are represented here, and we're going to start off with the Center for Independence of Individuals with Disability and with Ben McMullen. Ben, you're still on mute.
Excuse me.
That would help all of us if you could hear me, right? Hi, my name is Ben McMullen. I'm the Systems Change Advocate at Center for Independence of Individuals with Disabilities, whose mission it is to provide support services, community awareness, and systems change advocacy to promote the full and equal community integration of people with disabilities. My question is, many individuals with disabilities rely on the SSI as their only source of income, falling well below the low income minimum and even the extremely low income of $38,400. What steps will you take as our assembly person to ensure that people with disabilities and that fall within this price bracket do not get priced out and have access to safe, reliable, and affordable housing in San Mateo County? Thank you.
Thank you. There's a couple of questions in there that need to be addressed. Obviously, the 38,000 is definitely such a low amount that should be considered for realignment to make sure that that amount is livable. As far as access, I'm all for creating access to affordable housing. But making sure it's affordable, not just affordable for the middle or not just affordable for those that can, but make it affordable for those that allows for cities to be able to use their bully pulpit when they're negotiating to make sure that when you're guaranteeing that there are units that are affordable and available with developers, that they're keeping in mind that there should be some that are available for those that are extremely below that rate.
Hi, Ben. Thank you. This is an absolute priority for me. I have a disabled son. He's on SSI. And you're right, it's not adequate. I believe both federal and state need to very much realign, as Mr. Goodman mentioned. I have been working with him to have him qualify. He needs independent living. He's high functioning, but needs that independent living, and he can't qualify for any. He has such a low income. He's not able to even get on the list in Redwood City for his own apartment. He's being evicted from Docktown from his own safe floating home. And this would be an absolute priority. I would work on it nonstop.
Mark?
Oh, yeah, Benjamin. I tell you, this is another good thing about cutting government, keeping taxes where they're at, but there's so much more we can do for you, for people who are handicapped, not just you, but for seniors. I mean, we can, stop paying utilities, and that you get them because you're in such a low income bracket. It's like we can afford to do this. And getting other resources to you that we can naturally do within our local communities. I think everything has to come down on a local community, but this is a good advocation for just really cutting government and keeping our taxes where they're at. We can afford to take care of people in such low income housing, as well as our seniors and those who are single parents. I mean, it's a lot of people, and the people are all hurting for money right now. So, and it's just tough. Anyway, yeah, I would say cut taxes, cut government, and take care of.
Hi, Ben. Thank you for the question. And thank you for all you do to make sure that those with disabilities are empowered and they're independent. I come from a family where my brother was with special needs. I understand this issue. I am so proud, and we are very results oriented in San Mateo, that in our new affordable housing complex, as you know, 7 units will be dedicated to adults with challenges. I wish there were more, but I'm infinitely proud of it. I remember those advocating for it, and I could see how huge the need is and how grateful the advocates were that somebody was at least designating some housing for it. And we're going to do more. And in Sacramento, I will make sure that some affordable housing, just like we did in San Mateo, is chunked aside for adults with disabilities. Because the best way to get empowered and independent is to be able to have that housing. So that's where I put the money.
Yes, disability rights are something that's very dear to me. When I was 5, my father suffered a traumatic fall down the stairs that left him largely paralyzed and waist down. And throughout my childhood, he was in and out of the hospital. And I also had to take some part in caring for my disabled father when he was home. And I think what's really important is ensuring that we have equal employment opportunities, especially in the digital age where we are seeing so many of our jobs becoming more and more remote. We especially need affordable housing specifically for our disabled neighbors, ensuring that resources are also provided on site, and also for in-home care services, making sure that it is guaranteed as a human right in any universal healthcare system that is provided by California, as well as ensuring that it is required to be provided by private insurers as well.
I believe that this is an issue both on the income side and on the expense side. So on the income side, like has already been mentioned several times, there needs to be a readjustment as to the number incoming. On the expense side, there are actually a number of different programs, but they need to be expanded and actually focus on communities such as yours. For example, Section 8 at the federal level. We need to have complementary programs here in California, both at the state and local level, which will make it easier for communities such as yours to actually be able to support themselves in their own homes. In addition, of course, you also have, small homes, tiny homes, some of the smaller communities like Mayor Papan just mentioned. And so all of these are different facets that will actually be able to help communities such as yours, because not everyone actually can also live alone. So in addition to that, they need support services to allow them to be as independent as possible.
Thank you. And thank you. Oh, no, sorry, one more.
I believe I still have, yeah.
Yes, you do. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the question, Ben. So I was really pleased that we worked with San Mateo County Commission on Disabilities board members and others on an incredible affordable housing and independent living development in downtown Redwood City. Don't quote me, I want to say it was over 30 units. But we also called this out as an ongoing housing element priority in Redwood City, where we want to see this as a specific need called out so that we can work with developers in the future to ensure these units are built. And naturally, we need more funding incentives at the state level because these need to be deeply subsidized, right? Extremely low income is actually the rate that we're talking about here. That's not even called out currently by the state. So that's something that I want to get added to the housing element so that we ensure there are good funding sources ongoing for this work. I do want to mention mental health is also an important area here. And I do have the support of the United Domestic Workers who help people in their homes to have assisted living. And so we need to also ensure wages are there.
Thank you very much, Ben, for your question. Next, we're going to go to Julio Garcia from Rise South City.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Julio Garcia, and thank you for being here. It has been really interesting in listening to all your answers. I wish that we have like a few more hours, but you know, we need to continue. So I am the founder of Rise South City. We're located in South San Francisco, and we are committed to create dialogues in our frontline communities about climate change and social equity issues. And yes, you know, climate change is real. Climate change is here, and we need to tackle that. As we all know, even in the best case scenario, we need to require drastically more climate action that we have until today. And this window is closed. I mean, it's getting closer. And we are focusing in not just how to address the climate change, but how this is going to affect the frontline communities. And I mean, the district that we are covers most of the frontline communities. So in that context, my question is, if you get elected, how will you tackle climate change from your office and partner with our frontline communities?
Mark, you're first.
Oh, great, thank you. Yeah, that's interesting because, you know, there was a book I just read and it was called, and I had to look it up on another phone because I just kind of glanced through it. It was called Inconvenient Facts, and it's like facts on 30 prominent climate topics. And the science just isn't supporting climate change, guys. You know what? Absolutely not. And I'm throwing it down on this. You can say all you want about it, but when I keep looking around at every politician who votes for this stuff winds up having multi-million-dollar homes on the beach, I have a little bit of issue about it, especially when they're flying in their own private little jets and they're talking to us about footprints. No, it's just, you know what? It's no. But if the science, yeah, I just got issue with it. But go ahead and read the book, Inconvenient Facts, and I think you'll start to. We got to get the politicians out of this. Sorry about that one.
Yes, it's going to be our generation that bears the brunt of climate change. We're already feeling its effects with sea level rise, pollution, drought, and wildfires. Before I was on the city council, I was deeply involved in the environmental justice movement, successfully pushing Harvard to divest its $40 billion endowment out of the fossil fuel industry. And what we really need to do in California is transition away from fossil fuels and to all electric buildings, ending fossil fuel extraction. Something that a lot of folks don't know is that 14% of all Californians live within 1 mile of an active oil drilling well. And we need to make sure that we are ending all new fracking and oil drilling and ensuring that we are taxing existing oil extraction into a climate resiliency fund so that we can have that just transition for all our workers and all our communities to a renewable energy economy. We need a Green New Deal for California, and we need to abide by the principles of environmental justice so that no community and no worker is left behind. And that's why we've been endorsed by the Sunrise Movement, Clean Water Action, and Bill McKibben, one of the co-founders of 350.org, because we're going to be committed to tackling climate change aggressively and ensuring that we are holding PG&E accountable.
Hi, Julio. Well, you know, the climate impacts aren't theoretical. First of all, they're not theoretical at all. Sorry, Mark. But they're not theoretical for people who are living in our marginalized communities. They're experiencing the worst of it today. Air quality impacts. You can take an air testing instrument and you can go there for yourself and see the impacts today in these communities. I'm already doing this work. I worked together with Peninsula Clean Energy and the Silicon Valley Bike Coalition to make sure that we weren't just working on programs that gave wealthy individuals access to electric vehicles, but also marginalized communities access to electric bicycles. This was a 3-year pilot program that sold out in 5 days. That's how popular it was. And the bike shops are all local, so it's benefiting those local economies as well. We're also going to need more equitable funding models. We've already innovated on this in Redwood City with our ADA model, which is restorative in where these funds are applied. And finally, we need to do more with the urban canopy so that we can really restore the air quality in these neighborhoods. I'm proudly endorsed by the California environmental voters, and they have, because of the work I've already done on this issue.
Thank you, Julio, for the work that you do in our communities, bringing light to these issues. Environmental justice is important, especially to marginalized communities. So I appreciate your work in bringing these matters to the forefront. Obviously, I had another answer or a direction I was going to go to, but it's obvious that the number one way we address this is education, education, education. There is no way that someone could say climate change is not real. And the fact that we see that here is evident that we need to focus on the education and making sure that those that are in our community that are questioning climate change understand how big of a fear or big of an issue it is, and what we need to address. We need to address the sea level rise, equity and funding to support and protect against flooding here locally up in North County. And address the equities versus South County and other areas. We also have to make sure that decarbonization is addressed in a manner that has the attention.
Sorry, Diane.
Thank you, Julio, for the question. You know, we have adaptation and we have mitigation. I've done a lot of work on adaptation in this county with the creation of the Flood and Sea Level Rise Resiliency District. It hasn't been particularly glamorous work, but it's certainly very important work, as this county is the most vulnerable county in the state for flood and sea level rise. We're working on ways that will provide both engineered solutions and natural solutions. And I know that your organization has looked a lot at perhaps some natural solutions with water periodically coming into green space. I think it's a terrific idea. I look forward to working with you on it. As it relates to mitigation, one of the things that I really want to focus on at the state is carbon extraction. If we stop polluting in the morning, we still need to extract carbon from the atmosphere. The technology has not been fully developed. We're the 5th largest economy in the world. We have a great brain trust, and I really want to focus on perfecting that technology and having it come from California.
Hi, Julio. I've spent the last 30 years of my life working on this, and 10 years, let's say, further living it. So long discussion we could have. Let me start by saying that up until recently, I worked at AirSpec in Berkeley. They did monitoring of air pollution, so I'm very familiar with air pollution and the whole systems. And what they're looking at doing is incorporating air pollution monitors into all kinds of home appliances so that you would know the reality is that the air pollution in your bathroom is fundamentally different to the air pollution in your bedroom to the air pollution in your kitchen. So I can go in depth. But separate and apart to my work, I also live my values. And so I understood that sea level rise was an issue. And I heard that Redwood City was at the forefront and was building a community of floating homes. And so I moved to Redwood City. But in fact, what Redwood City is doing is closing down that floating community that could be a solution to sea level rise.
Hello, Julio, thank you so much. I support a Green New Deal. I'm on a weekly working group that involves Dolores Huerta and a nonprofit in Santa Cruz. They've put forth SB 1230, and I want to call attention to Mark and anyone else that may be interested to Google the Senate Environmental Quality Standing Committee, the meeting on April 20th when they heard that bill. I dialed in just to hear that agenda item, but I listened from 9 o'clock to 1 p.m. and it was the best government I have heard in a long time. Republicans admitting they should have been doing things 30 years ago, and everyone just collegial across the aisle. This is going to bring jobs, labor jobs. It involves efficiency in construction and manufacturing. This is just going to be the right thing to do and an absolute boom for California and its economy while taking the steps that are absolutely essential right now.
Thank you so much, Julio, for sharing your question with us. We're going to go to closing statements now. We're going to be just over 3:30 when we're done, but we really appreciate everyone staying for the last couple of minutes for this. We will start closing statements with Giselle.
Well, thank you all for hosting us today and for the many groups that came to ask questions. You know, in this race, there are a number of good candidates that I think will take good votes on a lot of these issues, but we deserve more than a good vote. We deserve a champion on the issues that matter most, with a record for taking on tough fights and winning for local families. And that's me. I didn't wait for a vote to come to me to take care of childcare during COVID. I saw a need, I stepped up, and I delivered. In Sacramento, I will not wait for the opportunity to deliver for you. I'll create opportunity the same way I have created it throughout my life, with hard work, creative thinking, and the support of community. My campaign has the support of many individuals who work in nonprofits, who lead nonprofits, and over 100 state, federal, and local housing leaders. And that's why I've earned the support of Teachers Association, of worker representation groups, and of housing advocates and thousands of San Matean residents. And I would be honored to earn your support as well. Thank you.
Diane?
Sorry about that. As a daughter of this district, I've dedicated my life to working in our community. I'm one of you. I'm a nonprofit director, and I've been one of you for 22 years, helping families. I know the work you do, and it's given me a perspective of what it takes to get things done. And we know all too well that we have a tale of two communities here in San Mateo County. And I've worked very hard at making sure that I can do everything I can to level the playing field. The choice in this race is based upon effectiveness. And I've been an effective leader because I've been a collaborator who listens and finds where we can move the needle. People are tired of a state government that's divided. We have got to work together. I have a track record of success in our county, and I've worked on our most pressing issues. I'm really proud to have the support that I have from a majority of the mayors, a majority board of supervisors, nurses, firefighters. Our campaign is about results, not platitudes, and I hope you'll join us.
Hello, thank you. Last year, I volunteered from May through August in an assembly race in the East Bay. And the field looked very much like this one. I think there's a lot of good people here. It was an open field with elected and appointed officials. And the two people that got the most votes were the two progressive women, neither of which had had elected or appointed experience. They had life experience. I've been a lawyer, a businesswoman, a mom, a working mom, a founder and director of a nonprofit, and a nonstop advocate for tenants and reform, eviction reform, and keeping people in their homes. I would be very effective in Sacramento and locally in addressing all of these challenges facing Californians today. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm sorry, with just the remaining time, I wanted to ask people to go to Ballotpedia, the League
Sorry,
of Women.
you don't have any remaining time.
Oh, sorry, I thought I did. I had muted myself, I'm sorry.
Okay. Am I good? All right. Yes, thank you. As an elected official here in San Mateo County for some time now, I have committed my adult life, not just to the elected community and our residents, but to those that are unheard, those that are not at the table. That has been my calling. This is not something that I've sought out to do. It was something that I believe chose me. And I've done so in a way that I believe is respectful of those that have come before me. I will continue to be courageous. I will continue to speak truth to power and represent you, again, as I said, in rooms where you are not. I will make sure that your issues are my issues. I will make sure that the people you serve are the people I serve. And I understand what you go through every single day as you do the best you can for those that need it most. Thank you, and I look forward to getting your support. Please join me at votegoodman.com.
Thank you all for your time, questions, and comments today. Gracias a todos por su tiempo, preguntas, y comentarios hoy. It is abundantly clear that we need a new way forward para un futuro mejor. As I noted in my opening statement, there is no magic fix or secret solution. However, there is purposeful, systematic change that we can make to achieve measurable, discernible differences and thrive as a community. Our system is gridlocked between Democrats and Republicans. We need to change the system. I am running as a Green. I have been endorsed by the Peace and Freedom Party and the recently launched Good Party. I ask all of you for your support, either by helping spread the word, supporting my campaign financially, and/or voting for me June 7th. We need a new way forward. Vote for me, taniasolé.com. Si se puede. Gracias.
Mark, your closing statement?
Yeah, thank you. Anyway, you know, my name is Mark Gilham. My website is sa21.org. You don't need www. I guess you can understand that I am not a politician. I am very astute in business. I do know business really well, with degrees in international business as well as business and finance. But I'm not here to grow government. Government is not the solution. The private sector is the solution. It's time to take government down. I'm here to make sure that parents have absolute right over their children. The money follows the child, not the district. Keep an eye on the time. Not the district, not the city or county. They have the right to put their children where they want. Public education is not doing a very good job. Definitely get the predators off of our children. Stop godless legislation and move forward with the right to self-govern and the right of free choice.
Thank you so much. Today, we all have a real choice to make. What kind of future do we want to build for our working families? What kind of money are we okay with our candidates taking? I'm proud to be the only candidate not taking gifts or donations from corporations, because it's way past time we put the interests of working people over private profit. I believe firmly that a seat in the state assembly should be earned, not bought. I've been leading South San Francisco in building mixed income social housing, in strengthening our tenant protections, and in taxing large corporations for universal childcare. There's no reason why California, as the 5th largest economy in the world, cannot lead on the many issues that we face today. A wealth tax, Medicare for all, a Green New Deal, reproductive justice for all. We have a Democratic supermajority. It's time we start acting like it. On the issues that matter to us the most, I promise you that I've got the courage to act. And that's why we have the support of dozens of leaders and grassroots organizations, people like Assemblymember Alex Lee, Hector Camacho, Equality California, SEIU California, the Democratic Renters Council, California Young Democrats, the California Working Families Party, Federation of Teachers, and so many more. I'd be honored to earn your vote as well.
Thank you so much. So with that, I want to sincerely thank all of the candidates for having been here, for taking the time to be with us today and sharing your views that are so important to our communities. I want to acknowledge and thank our co-hosts, San Francisco Peninsula People Power, Rise South City, Center for Independence of Individuals with Disabilities, Belhaven Action, and Peninsula Family Service. And finally, I want to thank everyone in the audience for attending and invite you to share the recording with your friends and join us at our candidate forums or to listen to our recordings. So thank you all so much and have a great afternoon.